Firstly, from myself, Johan Joubert, Cellar Master of Boland Cellar. It's really a privilege to do this tasting of Chenin Blanc. This is one of the varietals that's really the buzzword in South Africa. And this is the one that keeps my heart pumping. So if I'm jittering here, it's not about a presentation, it's about my love and my passion for the wine. First of all, good morning to our Chenin Blanc friends. Especially welcome to our international Chenin Blanc buyers and also the media for your continued support. And no wonder, because we compete currently and lead by example in comparison with the rest of the world. We are continuously in South Africa with a battle, and there's two things that we're battling with. First of all, is to protect our current plantings by ensuring that we reach a specific price point for a specific bottle of wine, especially when it comes to our premium and our low-yielding Chenin Blanc vineyards in South Africa. Secondly, is to motivate the producers to really plant this best South African white varietal and at the best possible sites and in the best possible soils. This was the reason for my recent shift toward Boland Vineyards International, is because I know I can live my passion and my dream there within the environment, because with good quality grapes and a good quantity of that, and by using this true nature and God-given things like soil, the two types of soil, granite and shale, definitely we're going to go the high road towards a new creation of styles. With only half an hour to put you through these wines, I've decided to illustrate the diversity of South African Chenins by focusing on the winemaking practices within a specific ward or a region, and also with the support of a micro element. And the micro element I've mainly focused on is soil, and how that I contribute to different South African styles. For the purpose of the tasting, I selected 7 Chenin Blanc wines of the 2013 vintage. One of them is a 2014, but I think I can be forgiven to be coming late into Boland and created that wine in the final blend. Unfortunately, other styles of Chenin Blanc, like areas from the Bot River and the Swartland region, they could not be shown, because the idea today is just to take you in the world of a winemaker and how winemakers in South Africa is using their specific regionality to create their own styles. And on the tasting notes, you will see I finished this off by giving a quote of each of the winemakers and how they will describe, or how do they describe their philosophy and their thinking of the Chenin Blanc in South Africa. Each of the wines I will talk you through, and I've also put you a little list in front of you that will illustrate the yeast and the soil selection, and also the winemaking processes, like for example whole bunch pressing, the use of the skins, and how do they create this unique wine. This then will be followed by, like I said, by a winemaker's philosophy, and to reveal the wines are as follows. The first wine is a Boland Cellar 2014 Reserve Chenin Blanc. We are also privileged to have our producer at the back there, Mr. Geldenhuys. And very interesting is, if we look at this wine was 50% was inoculated by South Africa yeast. Now, if you inoculate, you get a lot of fresh fruitness on Chenin Blanc. And then also 50% of the wine has undergo natural fermentation. The interesting thing, as I mentioned at the beginning, is we have these beautiful soils. The two differences, the one, the granite soil, and the second, the shale soil. You will also see that the granites normally come up very high at the mountain range, and they can go into different settlings. But the interesting thing about granite soils, you have a well-drained soil, and your roots really go quite deep. The granite soil is also always warmer in temperature, and what do? You get quicker ripening and a lower pH and a higher acidity. So if you keep that in mind, running through the tasting and taste each of the single South African examples, the differences between granite and shale. On the other hand, you will see that the shale soils go into layers of slight settlings as it goes through the years of settling in South Africa. And as it compacted, obviously the grapes that are grown on there, the soil are a quite colder soil. You do have that the soil are not so well drained to keep the moisture. You have a very slow and a long ripening period, and normally your pHs are slightly a bit higher and your acidity levels are lower. And then I'm just gonna, on this paper that I put up here, this is a combination of a duplex soil which got sand loam on the top and a clay layer. It's not the example that I have with the wines that I made, but also in the last wine, this type of soil will be illustrated. Now if you look at the Boland Focused, the grapes was crushed, kept on the skins, and if you keep it on the skins, you have an increase of polyphenols. And the amount of polyphenols, is most of the flavors for me are in the skins of the grapes. And that's why I'm a lover of skin contact. And the focus, if we look at the winemaker's philosophy currently at Boland, our focus are to ensure the maximum fruit expression with plantings on granite and shale soil and blend that back towards a consumer style. So you can please taste this wine. Immediately you pick up, there's a lot of freshness in the front, good expression of guava, citrusy, and a bit of limey fruit. Well balanced with the shale soil, give it a bit of creamy texture, and a good interaction. This one just won also at the IWSC Gold Award, so we're very proud of it. The second wine, without a doubt, a total style difference from our South African winemaker, Breuvert Raads. And if you look at a Breuvert Raads wines, you will see the opposite. 100% natural fermented. You will find that if you look at the soils, as he as a passionate winemaker describing it, they have table sandstone on the top, and if you look at the bottom, you will find decomposed granite. He do wine whole bunch pressing, and he go directly into the barrel. It's a very interesting concept, and you hear a lot about international winemakers, African winemakers, that when they use settling use, they don't want to clear with the juice. Also, they take a bit of the polyphenols with to the final fermentation process, and immediately that contributes to a bigger mouthfeel and a bigger complexity. What he do in terms of the barrels, he rolled the barrels every week for about 11 months, and that's quite hard work. He believes that you don't want to open the barrel. Once you open the barrel and you got oxygen inside the barrel, you get a different polymerization, and you want to keep it quite tight, and that way his philosophy are the follows: let the terroir and the soil lead the way for you as a winemaker to follow your style of winemaking. And you can feel it in the complexity and the mouthfeel of this wine, how interesting he creates on the palate. He described his wine to be a Chenin Blanc with white fruit, like pear, a bit of quince, and focus specifically on that, finishing off to the end of the wine. So that's a natural fermented 100% wine. Very interesting style change there. Now the third producer is Teddy Hall from Teddy Hall Wines. It's also in Stellenbosch. And this wine is the Dr. Katz Chenin Blanc 2013. It's a 100% natural fermented wine as well. But what's happening here is with the Raats wine, you have the sand on the top and the shale on the bottom. With Teddy's wine, you have 100% shale soils. And interesting, as I mentioned for you in the beginning, that if you have this grapes that ripening on the shale soils with the longer hanging time, you find much more layers, richness, complexity, not so upfront fruit freshness, but beautiful extension of fullness. He also believes to be low sulfate approach. Just in the beginning a bit, he put the bung on very tight, and at the end of the day, he say no stir of the lees. Just keep the wine in the barrel as it is, go as natural as possible. Then he sulfur just before bottling, and his philosophy are learn through experience. So he's been experienced a lot of Chenin Blanc winemaking already, that a natural fermentation and no interference creates a bigger complexity. It's interesting how you hear the winemaker's philosophies. And you are asking us, we sit with this beautiful country, we sit with sunlight, the guys are opening up the bunches very early. Sometimes they don't sucker the leaves. Yeah, you have a new dimension. Guys are now playing around to ferment it on skins. I personally believe find the right balance right in the beginning. Right, the fourth wine is a winery also very well known for Chenin Blanc in South Africa. It's the De Morganson Chenin Blanc. Unfortunately, they're not on the stands here today, but as I talk to Carl about it, you will see he started his, very interesting, he started his natural fermentation, and then he inoculated the wine with a Saccharomyces yeast strain. And we have the people from Tullis here as well. And if we talk about new styles in South Africa, the non-Saccharomyces yeast to use in the beginning, that's a new theory that people are playing around with. But if you look at Carl's philosophy, and you said is you follow always the correct procedures to ensure a finished fermentation and a style-driven wine. All of this wine so far is coming from a combination of either bush wine or bush wine and trellis. And having said that it's quite important that with a 40-year-old bush wine, and you look at the bunches that are ripening, the crop are going from 2 to 4, 5 tons per hectare. There's a lot of concentration in the use of that Chenin Blancs. And the bunches get up to 60, 80 grams in size, which really are using a lot of concentration. So working with that product, it's quite important for the Morganson, for example, is to make sure that you do have a dry fermentation at the end. So while he's putting his little babies ongoing in terms of fermentation in the cellar, he takes small parts of each from the barrel, he put it in a different barrel, he used this Saccharomyces yeast strain, he fermenting it in 2 or 3 bottling, then he put it